distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Women's Group of the Chartered Institute of Directors, I welcome you to the CIOD Women Directors Biennial Conference 2026. Theme: From Presence to Power, Advancing Women's Influence in the Boardroom. My name is Abosede Osho, and it's such a privilege and honor to serve as anchor of this landmark event. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, today we are connecting minds and building meaningful relationships, sharing insights, driving solutions, turning ideas into impactful actions. We know we are stronger together and ready for more. We're empowered women with thriving futures through our relationships, forged here and beyond this room. Let us individually and collectively link, turn our state of being present, our current existence into strength, ability, capability, and authority as women directors. Set in motion, inspire and motivate one another, using our personal connections to effect and impact, driving and directing our boardrooms, external environment, and the society. Together, holding another woman, let's take our place. The key is to keep company with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. Your presence is a gift. Your voice matters. Your presence can be transformed into power. I want to remind us of a quote from Nelson Mandela, who said, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life that we lead." And I will end this segment with another quote from Gabby Bernstein, who said, "Your presence is your power," which is why it's so important to give yourself the opportunity to truly live in the moment. I always say, let's have the conversations, gain the knowledge, and turn them into actions. Knowledge is the only potential power. Action is the power. Let's all live in this moment of the 2026 Women Directors Biennial Conference and emerge, turning our presence to power. Thank you very much again, and welcome. So on that note, I will be calling to give his welcome address. No, to give the welcome remarks, the chairperson of the Women's Group, Chartered Institute of Directors. Can we please welcome the beautiful, authentic, amazing, we are very adjective for women this morning, beautiful president.
Let me first thank the MC for those beautiful, powerful quotes. Quite inspiring and setting the tone for the day. The President and Chairman of the Governing Council, Otoba Adetuji Oyebami, FCIO, whose unwavering support for the women's group has been truly phenomenal and invaluable. Please give me a round of applause. The first Vice President, Mrs. Amina Ayamola, FCIO, our group's biggest cheerleader and a committed member of the women's group. Welcome, ma'am. I'm not sure the second Vice President has arrived. Our distinguished keynote speaker, His Excellency, Mr. Babatunde Rajafashola, San COL. You're most welcome, sir. Our special guest of honor, Dr. Derek Awushika, CON MFR MNI, and there is Guru, just looked at her. So joining us this morning for her was, something she did it out of honoring this institute. Thank you very much, Auntie. Our special guest, Her Excellency, Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun, with the kind permission of Mr. President, I will add, I don't know which of the F's or M's I'm to add, but I'll say CIOD. You're welcome, Mrs. Abiodun. Thank you very much. The first lady of the institute, past presidents and leaders of the institute, Dr. Mulukru, Dr. Jidema, thank you very much for joining us. Members of the Governing Council, and I dare say congratulations to the newly inducted members of the Governing Council. Captains of industry, fellows and members of the Chartered Institute of Directors, members of the Women's Group, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my profound honor as chairman of the Women's Group of the Chartered Institute of Directors Nigeria to welcome you to the Women Directors Biennial Conference 2026. Today, this is much more than a conference venue. It is where governance, enterprise, leadership, and influence converge, where ideas will be tested, and where perspectives are challenged, and the future of board leadership will be shaped. This show is filled with policy makers
who shape nations, CEOs who shape industries, board leaders who shape institutions, and thought leaders who shape conversations long before the society catches up. Indeed, the conversations that begin here today may well influence boardrooms, businesses, public institutions, and even national direction tomorrow. It is a privilege to witness such an extraordinary gathering of experience, intellect, and influence. We're deeply honored by the presence of our distinguished keynote speaker, His Excellency Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN CON, our special guest of honor, Dr. Derek Awushika, CON MFR MNI, and Her Excellency Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun, and every distinguished guest who has honored our invitation. We thank you sincerely for being with us today. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our conference theme is From Presence to Power, advancing women's influence in the boardroom. There has never been a more important time for this conversation. The conversation has certainly evolved. Women are no longer asking simply to be included. We are determined to shape outcomes. Presence may open the door, but influence certainly shapes decisions. The true measure of leadership is not whether we sit at the table, but whether our contributions strengthen governance, shape strategy, and leave institutions better than we found them. Boardrooms are not ceremonial spaces. They're where difficult decisions are made, where risks are weighed, where opportunities are seized, and institutional futures are determined. The quality of decisions made within them determines whether institutions thrive or fail, whether economies prosper or stagnate, and whether governance becomes transformational or merely transactional. That is why diversity in leadership is no longer a social aspiration. It is a strategic imperative. Across the world, organizations increasingly recognize that leadership diversity strengthens governance, improves risk oversight, broadens strategic thinking, and builds lasting stakeholder confidence. Strategic assets for every modern boardroom. Let me also say this clearly. This conference is not about tokenism. It is not about symbolism. It is about competence, it's about capacity, It's about credibility and it's about courage. Because influence in the boardroom is never donated. It is earned through preparation, sound judgment, strategic thinking, consistency, and the confidence to contribute when it matters most. Titles may confer authority, but the only contribution earns influence. Sometimes, leadership is simply the courage to ask the difficult questions, to take the ethical stand, or to refuse to endorse mediocrity. Those moments often determine the future of institutions. The future of governance, both public and private, belongs to institutions that understand that good governance, sustainability, and inclusive leadership are inseparable. Our conference itself reflects that philosophy in practical ways, demonstrating that sustainability is not merely something we discuss as directors, but something we intentionally embed in how we lead and organize. That is why gatherings like this matter. When women who govern gather, the future is certainly shaped. Today is therefore more than another conference. It is a declaration that competence has no gender, and that the strongest institutions are those that draw upon the full breadth of available talent. So to every woman in this room, whether you already serve on a board, whether you aspire to one, whether you currently lead an organization, build a business, or you shape public policy, I encourage you, do not merely seek visibility, seek value. Do not merely occupy space, command relevance. Do not simply aspire to be present where decisions are made. Aspire to shape those decisions. Because ultimately, the goal is not simply to sit at the table. It is to influence the agenda, strengthen governance, and leave every institution better than we found it. That is leadership. That is influence. And that is power. My hope is that years from now, this conference will be remembered, not simply for the conversations we had, but for the actions they inspired, not simply for celebrating women, but for strengthening institutions, and not simply for increasing visibility, but for advancing influence. No conference of this scale happens by accident. Before I conclude, permit me to place on record my sincere appreciation to the Conference Planning Committee, ably led by its chairman, Mrs. Ngozi Oyewole. Thank you. For many months, they have worked diligently to transform a vision into the remarkable gathering we're witnessing today. Please join me in appreciating every member of that committee for a job well done. I also wish to thank our headline sponsors, NDDC and MTM, whose generous support has made this conference possible. To our partners, Oando PLC, the Argentil Group, Toleram, NSITF, Templars, NDIC, and First E&P. And to every organization and individual who has supported this conference, we are deeply grateful. To our keynote speaker, our special guest of honor, our special guests, our moderators, panelists, and faculty, and every resource person who has accepted to share their knowledge today. Thank you for investing your time and expertise in strengthening governance and leadership in our nation. To everyone who registered to be here today, thank you for believing in the vision of the Women's Group. I encourage you to participate fully throughout today. Engage actively in the conversations and build meaningful connections. You will notice that our conference program is available digitally through a QR code. If you turn the backs of your tags, you will find a QR code, rather than the printed format. This reflects our commitment to sustainability and responsible stewardship of resources. As directors, we recognize that good governance today must be accompanied by conscious environmental responsibility. It is a small step, but one that aligns strongly with the values of responsible leadership that this conference sits to promote. I also encourage you to join us later for our networking cocktail as we continue these important conversations beyond the formal sessions. Before I leave the podium, permit me to acknowledge two special birthdays. To our keynote speaker whose birthday was on Sunday, His Excellency Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola. And to the chairman of the Conference Planning Committee, Mrs. Ngozi Oyewole, who celebrates today. I think she must have had an alignment with the Institute in changing the date from 18th June to today. We wish you both God's abundant blessings, good health, and many more years of impactful service. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you for honoring our invitation. I welcome you all once again to the Women Directors Biennial Conference 2026. May today's conversations inspire bold thinking, courageous leadership, and stronger institutions. May each of us live here, determined not merely to occupy board seats, but to shape decisions and strengthen the institutions that we serve. I thank you all for listening. God bless you all, and may God bless the Institute and also the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning.
Please let's clapping for Mrs. Ronke Shokefun. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, she did say that we have two birthdays that we are acknowledging, and it's only proper that we actually sing a birthday song to them. So please, will you join me to sing? Do I have the voice? We'll sing collectively for our special guest of honor, our keynote speaker, and also the chairperson of the planning committee, Mrs. Oyewole. Is she around? Okay. All right. So we'll have both of them sit while the rest of us stand. Are we ready? Can you help us? Okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. May the good Lord bless you. May the good Lord bless you. May the good Lord May the good Lord bless you. Please clap for yourselves, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. That was beautiful. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for the honor. To His Excellency and to Mrs. Oyewole. When the chairperson of the women's group spoke to us, she did mention that the future of board leaderships would be shaped here today. Please, let's all endeavor to be a part of shaping that future of board leaderships. As she said, there's no better time for these conversations. And it's not whether as women we sit at the table, but that our contributions leave institutions better. Women bring perspective, they bring intelligence, they bring strategic value. What this conference is about competence, capacity, is about courage. And today's conference is a declaration that competence has no gender. Can women clap and applaud this? Competence certainly has no gender. On this note, I'm going to be calling to give his opening address the President and Chairman of the Governing Council, Chartered Institute of Directors, Nigeria, Otumba Adetunji Oyebanji, FCIOD. Please let's applaud him as he comes and get set for a different kind of opening address.
Well, I think I should start by saying I'm jealous. Maybe I should have changed my birthday to... The First Lady of Ogun State, Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun. The First Vice President, CIOD, Mrs. Amina Oyagbola, FCIOD. The Second Vice President, Alaji Lamis Diko, FCIOD. Past Presidents and Elders of CIOD. Our keynote speaker, Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN, CON. Members of the Governing Council of the Chartered Institute of Directors, Nigeria, and congratulations to the newly elected members. I will touch on that subject later. The Director General and Chief Executive Officer of CIOD Nigeria, Dr. Taiwo Nolas Alausa, MCIOD. Our indefatigable chairman of the CIOD Women's Sectoral Group, Mrs. Ronke Shokefun. Fellows and members of CIOD, our special guest of honor, Dr. Mrs. Dere Awoshika, CON, MFR, MNI. Our special guests present here today, sponsors and partners of the CIOD Women's Directors Biennial Conference 2026, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's been an interesting morning. The issues started with a touch of pink. So here am I, going through my wardrobe, trying to find what a touch of pink would be. And as you know, in a typical male wardrobe, pink is not a particularly popular color. So my wife having helped me, of course, I started by finding a completely odd color. Because me, I don't know the difference between fuchsia and pink and whatever. But anyway, seeing that looking for a touch of pink would end up making me late, I quickly decided to go for the quickest or nearest alternative. So please, if you don't see a touch of pink, forgive me. It's also been an interesting morning because I think Lagos, as we move on, having a boat may be a preferred means of transport. So good morning again to you and welcome to the CIOD Women Directors Biennial Conference 2026. We often say one of the common messages we hear is women are taking over. I think I'd like to correct that now to say women have actually taken over. I said I would touch on a subject. We just had our council elections at CIOD. We had 8 positions available, and lo and behold, 6 of the new members are now women. Of course, my first vice president, my able first vice president is a lady. The chairman of our Abuja branch is a lady. And when I look at the sectoral groups in CIOD, I think without fear of contradiction, the women's sectoral group probably is the most vibrant. And just to emphasize that, last week I was with Prince Olashore at the LCCI Members Day, and they were giving awards for the best sectoral groups. And guess which group again won honor, the women's group. So if the chairman of the women's sectoral group says that I'm a great supporter, what I will say is I don't really have a choice. Looking across this room, I'm struck by the overwhelming sense, with an overwhelming sense of pride, but more importantly, a profound sense of purpose. We have traveled from different industries, geographies, and backgrounds to convene under a singular definitive banner this year, from presence to power, advancing women's influence in the boardroom. I want to express my deepest gratitude to the executives of the Women Group of the Institute, chaired by Mrs. Ronke Shokefun, FCIOD, our partners and our visionary sponsors who recognize this gathering is not merely a biannual checkbox, but an incubator for future of corporate governance. It is an extraordinary privilege that our keynote address today will be delivered by a statesman who epitomizes exactly what it means to turn institutional presence into transformative, enduring power. His Excellency Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN. Sir, we are deeply grateful that you accepted our invitation and thank you for your service to the nation. May I also add that I've been instructed at home to greet him very well, being that he's my in-law. And where I come from in Nigeria, they say there's no small in-law. And when the in-law is even a titan, then, so I don't know, good morning, sir. I want to express our deepest appreciation to our special guest of honor, Dr. Mrs. Dere Awoshika. MNI, our condolences, ma'am. Thank you so much for gracing this occasion, despite your loss. I did a bit of research. I do that when I have to pronounce names. So I wanted to be sure about your name. So I did a bit of research, and I found that it's really Ajorishe Dere. So I found out it's an Ishekiri name, so I will also say Erewuroma. Again, thank you for gracing this occasion. Your presence today is a testament to your unwavering commitment to advancing inclusive leadership across our economic and governance landscapes. To our special guests and all guests present here today, we recognize the immense weight of your schedules. Your decision to stand in solidarity with us today signals to the corporate world that the advancement of women in leadership is no longer a niche agenda, it's a mainstream priority. Thank you all for your presence and your continued partnership. When we reflect on the history of women in corporate governance, we can see a clear multi-generational trajectory. A few decades ago, the struggle was simply about entry, securing a single seat, breaking through an invisible but incredibly dense glass ceiling. Women fought for visibility and fought to be counted. Presence is no longer the destination. It is merely the baseline. You can tell those of us, presence means being in the room. Power means shaping the agenda. Presence being allowed to speak. Power is ensuring that your perspective redirects the track. uncertainties. Expanding women's influence in the boardroom is not a moral favor. It is about what we ask of corporate capitalism. It is an urgent commercial necessity for the stabilization of the global economy. That is why the theme for this year's conference is an active call to arms. Moving from presence to power means transforming the very culture of the boardroom. As we open this conference, I challenge each of you to share the traditional posture of the grateful guests. You do not owe the board your gratitude for your seats. They owe their stakeholders the best talent available, and that is why you are there. I charge you all to leave this place ready to occupy the full measure of your capability. Let us step out of the shadows of tokenism and into the light of institutional impact. The organizations you lead face immense challenges, but they also hold immense potential. By bringing your full power, not just your presence to bear, you will ensure that they navigate the future with resilience, integrity, and vision. Thank you all, and it is my distinct honor to officially declare the CIOD Nigeria Women Directors Biennial Conference 2026 open. Thank you very much.
Can we keep appreciating our chairman? I did say that you were going to see a different kind of opening address, and I'm sure that chairman always leaves us with something to think about, and he does it in such a witty way. Once again, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, can we please appreciate our chairman? So next, I'm going to be calling to give her goodwill message the first Vice President of the Chartered Institute of Directors, Nigeria. Can we please welcome the very beautiful Mrs. Amina Oyabola, FCIOD. Let's welcome her as she comes.
Thank you very much. Wow, we have a full hall on what day of the week is it? Wednesday morning. That just shows, how important this event is today. So good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. I'm just checking that we're still awake. Mr. President and Chairman of the Governing Council of the Chartered Institute of Directors, Adetunji Oyebanji, FCIOD. Thank you very much for that fantastic opening remark that has set the content. He really is a fantastic he for she, I can tell you that. Please give him another round of applause. Distinguished members of the Governing Council, distinguished elders and past presidents, Dr. Ije Jidima and Madam Moluku, good morning, welcome, thank you for being here. The esteemed host and chair of the CIOD Nigeria Women's Group, the indefatigable Mrs. Ronke Shokefon. Please give her a special rousing applause for all that she's doing for us. Thank you so much. And the DG, I don't know, this thing is echoing, is it me? The DG, Dr. Taiwo Nolas Alausa of the Institute, a special guest of honor, a role model, my mentor, somebody we all admire and respect. Thank you very much for making time in spite of your personal situation. We really appreciate you. Dere Awoshika, thank you very much. And my brother, His Excellency, our distinguished keynote speaker, Dr. Babatunde Raji Fashola. Thank you very much for always being there for us. And let me recognize especially all the speakers, all the panelists, all the partners, all the moderators, our MC, and members of the Institute, members of the Institute who are here today. And I'm sure many of them are also online, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Mr. President of Council has already set the tone very nicely and said a lot, but I will just lend my voice, my 2 cents, and also, of course, the chairman of the women's group has also said a lot about why we're here. And this very appropriate theme that we have today, from presence to power, advancing women's influence in the boardroom. So it is an honor for me and a privilege to join in what has already been said by Mr. President and Chairman of Council, and also by the Chair of the Women's Group, about the opening of the 2026 Biennial Women Directors Conference. The theme, fantastic theme, from presence to power, advancing women's influence in the boardroom, is not only timely, it is very compelling, and it is deeply, deeply relevant. For many years, as Mr. President has said, the conversation centered on ensuring women had a seat. We wanted to have a ticket. You cannot go on a train ride if you don't even have a ticket. You cannot win a lottery if you don't have a ticket. So we focused on trying to ensure that women had a seat, first of all, at the table. You need to have a seat. You need to be present before you can exercise power. So, but presence alone is no longer enough. That's not to say that we have sufficient seats, and I will come to that shortly. The real measure of progress in influence, the ability to shape strategy, strengthen governance, manage risk, drive innovation, and contribute meaningfully to organizational success. The power in the boardroom is not about position or title, because you can have the positional authority. You may not have the respect, you may not have the credibility, and if you do not have those, you may not have the influence. However, you have the positional authority, so in theory, you have the power. It is about really credibility, and that's what this institute is about. It's about competence, as Mr. President said. It's about courage, and then it's about confidence. When you are in there and you have all those attributes to ask the difficult questions, ask the right questions at the right time, and make the principled decisions and create that long-term value. Nigeria has made encouraging progress in certain areas. Across both the private and public sectors, more women are serving on boards, leading institutions, and contributing to national development than ever before. The statistic is that in private sector today, top companies, that we have 31% representation. However, in the public sector, we know the score is very, very low. National Assembly is still at under 4%, and it's looking as if it's going to be worse after the 2027 elections. We've never had a female governor, we've never had a female vice president, and we've never had a president. And that is where the power lies. So there's tokenism in terms of women being deputy governors and so on and so forth. Yet we must also acknowledge that women remain significantly underrepresented in board chair positions, in CEO positions, and in some aspects of executive leadership, and many strategic decision-making roles where, again, the power resides. And I'm hoping that the conversations that we're going to be having throughout the course of today would discuss these issues. So there is still considerable ground for us to cover before leadership truly reflects the diversity of the talent available in our nation. So the responsibility for closing this gap belongs to all of us, both men and women. And as directors and leaders, we must intentionally build stronger leadership pipelines for women. This requires, again, requires more than mentorship. Mentorship is important, and I'm pleased to say that the Institute has a great mentorship program, and I'd like to encourage everybody who is not yet on that program to get onto it. Mentorship helps women to grow their competence, their confidence, and their capacity, and enables power and presence. Sponsorship goes a step further. Sponsors use their influence to recommend, to advocate for, to create pathways, to create opportunities for women to lead, and provide the guidance, on how to exercise power. When I was growing up the ladder, there were certain things I didn't know, and it was my male mentors that really showed me the way. So organizations that are serious about inclusive governance must embrace both. So as someone who has devoted many years to developing women leaders, I have seen firsthand the transformational impact of intentional mentorship, purposeful sponsorship, and supportive networks. Talent, as you know, the chair of the women's group said, is everywhere, but opportunity is not. So our responsibility in this Women's Biennial Conference is to help to bridge that gap. We can do so also, and I want to, advertise the Institute. We can do so easily by also accessing the CIOD Independent Directors Register, which is a robust database whenever you are searching for competent um, female and male directors. So it's open to both. But you can be sure that any woman, if you're looking for inclusion and diversity and you search there, you're going to get, somebody that will add value and help to ensure your sustainability. You can also enroll your female talent in the CIOD mentorship program, and also register for the excellent CIOD director development programs. I'm particularly delighted and looking forward to hearing the keynote address to be delivered by Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN. And he always has something interesting to share, and his experience is so rich and so robust. His distinguished record of public service and leadership reminds us all the time that excellence in governance is strengthened when diverse perspectives are welcomed and valued. To every participant gathered here today, as I wind down, I'd like to encourage you to approach this conference not merely as an opportunity to network, as the chair of the conference has said, Madam Shokefum, but as an opportunity to learn and to challenge the current assumptions, to forge strategic relationships, and to commit to actions that will strengthen governance in our organization and indeed in our nation. So let us leave this conference determined to build stronger boards that are more effective and more inclusive and more future ready. Let us mentor generously, let us sponsor intentionally, let us lead courageously, and let us ensure that women who come after us inherit not just seats at the table, but genuine influence where decisions are made and the future is shaped. I'd like to congratulate our president and chairman of the governing council. I'd like to congratulate the CIOD women's group. Really, they've raised the bar. They've raised the bar. They've raised the bar. And it should be acknowledged. And of course, the organizing committee for convening yet another, what I know will be an outstanding conference. So on behalf of the Governing Council and the chair, the president, and I warmly welcome you and all the delegates and speakers, and thank you very much for your presence. And we look forward to the power that you are going to unleash today. Thank you.
Can we keep appreciating our first Vice President, Mrs. Amina Oyabola? Once again, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, can we appreciate the Women's Sectoral Group of the Chartered Institute of Directors? They surely have raised the bar. They have raised the bar. She is an accomplished administrator with over 3.5 decades of experience in public sector governance. She was the chairman of Access Bank, where she also served as independent non-executive director, and chairman and vice chairman of the Board Credit and Finance Committee and the Board Audit Committee, respectively. She's a member of Council of Advisors of Africa Initiative for Governance and member governing board of the Nigerian Prize for Leadership. She is a fellow of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, PSN, West Africa Postgraduate College of Pharmacy. She received the Board Chairman of the Year Award at 2022 Business Day Nigerian Investor Value Awards. Yes, we may clap for that. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome, for the special guest of honor's remarks, Our special guest of honor, Dr. Dere Awushika, CON, MFR, MNI. Ma, our condolences once again, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this occasion. I want to thank God because more or less lift my heart up that things are happening. I see so many of my sisters here, but let me follow the protocol. I want to recognize the presence of my sister, Excellency, First Lady Ogun State, and to also recognize the presence of the former governor, my Minister of Power, son Babatunde Raji Fashola, CON, and to used to say that I'm not CON, I'm ON, MFR, MNI, correct? But not CON. I tell a little story. When I was a member of the award giving committee, and the chairman said, yes, you deserve this. So that story leaked. And I said, I cannot be in this committee and be giving myself an award. Thank you. Thank you, Otumba Ojebamiji, President, Chairman of the Governing Council. Thank you that you allowed this topic to go. You're not one of those men that want to maneuver women out. So you didn't change it from presence to power. That's so significant. There can be no louder way to speak that you support women. Thank you. Thank you, the chairman. Thank you to all the executive of the group. And thank you especially for allowing me to be part of this occasion to learn. Because learning, for me, I think, is the way to go so that we continue to improve. I had a little time to look at the topic. Distinguished audience, I salute you. I stand before you today with a heart full of gratitude to God for the gift of this moment, the gift of CIOD, leading Nigeria on a good, thoughtful path to fulfilling what is right to do for women. I'm very serious about this statement I made because I think that when you don't consider women either in your home or in your state and your local government, you're already disobedient to God. You can't know better than God. He created men and women to be able to make life good. So it's a very good thing to always have men and women and to promote women quickly so that there can be multiplication. So the theme, from presence to power, is though an uncommon theme, but it's a great theme indeed. It's a clarion call that is very, very timely. The first Vice President has said it. Where you are making the law, no women. I think there are 3 senators. You said it in the House, and you are making a negative prediction. I hope not. Maybe I'm not correct. That may be worse in 2027. We pray that things will get better and better for the sake of our nation, Nigeria. So this uncommon theme is so instructive. It's a very great advisory for going forward in appropriate governance. Allow me to ask this simple question, please. What difference has presence made thus far? Just sitting in the room. Just ask yourself, sitting in the room, what difference has it made? No record of voice, no record of shift, no record of fight, no record of success, no record of disagreement, etc., etc. What difference? If there's none, then there's definitely a need for a shift. What has happened and what can yet happen when women are truly represented in a power room. I put the power room in quotes. Power room are boardrooms. Power room are governance sectors. Power room also begins from our home, where we take the right decisions that affects our children, that affects our husbands, and the entire community, as the community is made of various homes. So in everywhere we look at, it's a power room. McKinsey, in a report that I came across some years ago, McKinsey Women in the Workplace 2025 report, they confirmed that women held just 29% of C-suite roles, 29, 2%. And that number, unfortunately, from 2025, I checked an update, has not improved. That's a very striking data. Such data tell us clearly that something very, very important needs to happen. That we need to move from presence, not to ensuring that we have a ticket, and also making sure that we have an impact. So today, the theme is very important, that we put the two together as twin aspects, presence and power, that needs to lead to impact. And without that, the presence will be a nullity. It alters the photograph in the boardroom. The photograph will be there in the boardroom, and the woman will just be sitting there, and there's no power. After this meeting, I believe that will change wherever every one of us is. In the boardroom, outside the boardroom, in the room, in any office, let your power show. Power of knowledge, power to make decisions, power to see ahead, power to be able to direct as directors. And so, we must be able to make a distinction, and hopefully, we'll be able to look at jointly this morning the kind of impact that is expected when a woman is in the room, the boardroom, or otherwise. I remember chairing one company, very long time, it's not Access, don't want to call the name. And then they put the pictures of the board. And one day came in early, and I just called their attention. I said, okay, can we just admire the photographs around this room? And went around 90 this, 90 that. Until I came in, there was no woman. And I jokingly said, perhaps this is why you have problem A, B, C, D, E. But really, it's not a joke. It is not a joke. We will be deceiving ourselves. It's not arrogance. It's actually humility to be able to diagnose a problem and say, let's do it. Let's do it together. God made it so that we do it together. We cannot change it. If there's anything we need to change, we need to change that women will be there. I want to beg women, don't beg. Don't beg for anything. It's a right. I remember Access coming, women this day asking me to speak on something about, what's the name, that they are torturing you in the, what do you call it? There's a name for it, torturing women. Pardon? Again, harassing and all that. And I asked the question, how did you comport yourself? Were you there to work? What was your disposition? What was your stand? What are your kind of jokes? Jokes are good. But the women must show that in any office I am, here I am, I have what it takes and I will give what you need beyond. I also remember the Minister of Women Affairs sending me a topic to speak that has to do with, I have to change the topic. I begged her, please, I cannot speak on this topic because I am not an underdog. I am not going to be able to talk about this thing. So that's the topic that they gave UN. I said, that's UN. That's not me. I'm not going to talk about it. You can get another speaker. Say, okay, call the topic and say your topic. I said, thank you, Honorable Snell. I really appreciate you. I changed the topic because the topic was like, I've accepted that I'm an underdog. I've accepted that I'm a second citizen. I've accepted that I need your help. No, you need my help. I need your help. It's so very important that we make this distinction, that we hopefully be able to transform jointly with our men our environment, the purpose for which we live, the purpose of the organization, the purpose of government, the purpose of the work, the purpose of the home, and all that we stand for. We must play our role just as we have the capacity to do. We will not equate power to dominance. No. It's wrong for a man to dominate me. It's also wrong for me to dominate a man. That's just the truth. Equity. I like the Nigerian code. We don't say it, we sing the national anthem, but we don't talk about the code. Equity brings justice. Justice brings peace. Peace brings progress. That's what the Nigerian code says. That's what the women code says. Let's have equity. It's equitable for a woman to be in the room. It's equitable for a woman to give service. It's justice for a woman to be there. It is the real justice. And thank God that our keynote address speaker is a very, very tough lawyer. And he will need to help us. That the justice for women in this country is that we be in the room and speak as citizens of Nigeria for the benefit of this nation and for the private sector. And that as soon as we get that done, the population of women that we have will bring peace. And when we have peace, there will be progress in Nigeria. There's too much talking. Let's get doing the right thing. And I believe that today we will hear enough to do the right. Thank you.
That certainly deserves a standing ovation. Wow. She has charged us What difference has presence made thus far? In whatever we do, let the power show, the power of knowledge, the power to make decisions, the power to see ahead and to direct. Whenever a woman is in the room or boardroom, women don't beg for anything. It is a right. And let's not forget the Women's Code. Equity brings justice. Justice brings peace, and peace brings progress. Once again, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, can we give a round of applause to our distinguished guest speaker, Dr. Dere Awushika. Earlier, when our first vice president was giving her remarks, she spoke about also presence being not enough anymore, that more women are serving in boards more than ever before now. So we should celebrate that. Let's celebrate that. More women are serving on boards more than ever before. Women are taking their place. And after today, we will take more of our place. Women, do I hear a yes? Yes. Private sector, we're still at 31% participation. That's what? Not good enough. It's fair, but what? Not good enough. So after today, we will take our place. And where power lies, government, women are still absent and underrepresented. There's considerable ground to cover. Thank God our keynote speaker is somebody that has been in government, is still part of government, and being here today, we know after today, he will do more for us as women in government. Can we have a clap to that? Thank you so much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Now, we will be taking a goodwill message. And to give this goodwill message is the wife of the executive governor of Ogun State and the first lady. Can we make welcome Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun Ashiki? Please, let's keep clapping. Let's keep clapping.
Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The former executive governor of Lagos State, Your Excellency Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN, CON, Otumba Adetunji Oyebamji, President and Chairman of the Governing Council, Chartered Institute of Directors, Nigeria, Mrs. Amina Oyabola, the first Vice President, CIOD, Alhaji Lamis Diko, Second Vice President, CIOD, Alhaji Tijani Borodo, Immediate Past President, the Chairman, Women Sectorial Group, Mrs. Ronke Shokefun, Dr. Taiwo Nolas Alausa, Director General, Chief Executive Officer, CIOD, Dr. Mrs. Dere Awoshika, Special Guest of Honor, members of the Governing Council of the Chartered Institute of Directors, fellows and members of the CIOD, sponsors and partners, I hope this is better.
Is it better?
Or maybe I need
Is
to
it better?
I need to project my voice. All right, I'm sorry. It's the weather. Sponsors and partners of CIODN, the moderator and panelists, other invited guests, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I count it a privilege to be in this room of builders, visionaries, and policy changers, discussing this timely theme, from presence to power, advancing women's influence in the boardroom. I must extend my appreciation to the chairman of the CIOD Women's Group and one of the trailblazers from Ogun State, Mrs. Ronke Shokefun, the Director General, Dr. Taiwo Nola Salausa, and the entire EXCO for your kind invitation and the opportunity to be a part of this important conversation. For too long, the journey of women in the corporate landscape was defined by the struggle for entry and securing a literal seat at the table. Today, we celebrate the fact that our physical presence is becoming an undeniable reality. Recent metrics illuminate this steady ascent. According to the Nigerian Exchange Top 30 Diversity Scorecard for year 2025, female representation on the boards of Nigeria's top 30 listed companies recently hit a historic high of 31.1%, achieving a critical mass where for the first time, not a single one of these leading firms operates with an all-male board. This is a victory born out of resilience, competence, and a shared refusal to remain unseen. However, we must candidly acknowledge that a seat at the table is merely a point of departure, not a final destination. The true metric of institutional progress is not descriptive representation. It is substantive, impactive influence. Research and the lived experiences of women leaders across industries continue to show that even when women sit on corporate boards, they are frequently confronted by entrenched patriarchal cultures, heightened expectations, and a subtle exclusion from informal decision-making channels. I'm reminded of an anecdote from a major engineering project on our continent, where a brilliant mid-level engineer spotted a technical flaw that an entire room of veterans had overlooked. It was not her mere physical presence in that meeting room that averted a crisis. It was the fact that she possessed the audacity to speak, and more importantly, that the room possessed the maturity to listen, pivot, and implement her insights. True power materializes when a woman's voice is not just recorded in minutes of a meeting, but is structurally woven into the corporate strategy, budget approvals, and executive decisions that steer our nation's economic future. Moving beyond the checkbox of diversity tokenism requires intentional collective governance frameworks that empower female leaders to challenge, question, and correct outdated structural norms. As corporate leaders and directors, your mandate is to transform corporate boards into environments where women transition from being invited guests to being active architects of institutional policy. We must consciously mentor the next generation of female professionals, dismantle the invisible networks of bias, and build corporate structures where female influence is normalized rather than tokenized. It's my sincere hope that we all leave this biennial conference not just with a renewed commitment to open doors, but with an uncompromising resolve to ensure that when a woman steps into a boardroom, she can be assured of fully stepping into power. Thank you very much for listening, and God bless you.
Can we please appreciate Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun? We must leave this conference with an uncompromising resolve that when women step into any boardroom or any room at all, they step in with what? With power. Thank you so much, Ma. We want to appreciate the presence of the former president of the CIOD Nigeria, Can we please welcome the very beautiful Ms. Benedicta Moloko, DFCIOD. Also, another past president, the very beautiful again, Dr. Mrs. Ije Jidema, DFCIOD. Can we please make welcome another former president of the Institute, Chief Chris Okunowo, DFCIOD. Okay, Chief Okunowo, the quintessential gentleman who always looks like he walked off the pages of GQ. Can we please appreciate him? So I had to compensate for that, for not having said it before. Forgive me, sir. As time goes on, we'll make recognitions in the room. But right now is a special moment. Permit me. When you have a rich resume, you don't even know where to start from. Is a senior advocate of Nigeria, law graduate of the University of Benin, who has had a public service career that has spanned over 2 decades long. He has served as chief of staff. No, sir. Please, can we appreciate him? Wow. You know, when you see a man who is so supportive of women, please let's appreciate him one more time. It's like, no, you're not going to be sitting down while you're saying that. Can I go ahead but you're going to keep standing? Okay. He has served as chief of staff and commissioner in the Lagos State government, 2-term governor of Lagos State, meritoriously concluded. Meritoriously concluded. He has served as minister of the federal government, meritoriously as well. As an advocate, he has distinguished himself. He was conferred with the rank of Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Nigeria's highest legal distinction. Is the first member of the law school class of 1988 to take the rank of Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Mr. Babatunde Fashola, SAN, is a recipient of the prestigious Stephen J. Sollers Award of the International Crisis Group in 2015. Please, let's clap. For his commitment to building a peaceful and vibrant society, his work to improve social and economic conditions in Lagos, including his role, who can never forget that, in preventing the Ebola outbreak from becoming a crisis in Nigeria. He was listed in 2014 as one of the 100 top global thinkers for 2013 by a Global Personality Assessment Organization. Mr. Fashola San is patron, Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, member, Nigerian Bar Association, member, International Bar Association, fellow of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, Notary Public of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, and I want to add, after today, member of the Chartered Institute of Directors. Maybe we'll make him a fellow. Please, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to give the keynote address on boardroom reset, governance, risk and strategy, influence across sectors. Let's make welcome His Excellency Babatunde Raji Fashola, SANCON. Please, let's keep clapping. Let's keep clapping. Let's keep clapping.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me. Let me start on a sympathetic note to again reiterate the messages of condolence to our auntie, Mrs. Dera Woshika, who is bereaved. And if I have the permission of the president and the chairman of the women's group to simply ask that we all remain in our seats, but just observe a moment of silence in honor of the departed. May the soul of the dear departed rest in perfect peace. Now, I think that the very effective lady in charge of ceremonies has done all of the protocols. The president, my very, very illustrious and indefatigable in-law, has addressed the protocols. So have all the eminent speakers before me. So I crave your indulgence to adopt the protocols as they have set them. And to say that the array of speakers before me have proven to be quite a tough act now to follow. What else can I truly say that has not been said because I listened? And I must say that I was a very, very reluctant speaker at this event, so let me confess. So when Mr. Shokefo was trying to reach me and I kept moving the dates around and that I wasn't sure, then she recruited somebody, Mrs. Ifeanyiwa Osime. And I thought, okay, why not? This would give you an opportunity to publicly say thank you to her. Where is she? She's ever so self-effacing. So you see, in the journey of life, there are moments when you introspect and just reflect and ask how many people have stood in the gap for you on your journey. She was one of them. In a way that she probably would not remember. We were much younger. She was my senior in the University of Benin. She was a year ahead of me. I'd always wanted to be a litigator. So I found myself in the moot and mock trial teams, and it was almost like real because they used to bring a sitting magistrate. So, and she was a leader of the team. I'm not sure if she remembers this incident. So one day whilst we were prepping, she said, look, Fashola, you are the one that is going to lead. I'm not interested in all this litigation stuff. So she yielded her seat and her leadership to me. And that was inspirational for me to appear before a real magistrate and try to demonstrate all the things I've watched on TV. And I was rightly put in my place by magistrate, later to be Justice Iwere Ogene. And that was defining in the course of my career, and in shaping the litigator I have turned out to be. Thank you very much. So, if there is one good reason to be here, it's to say thank you. But again, I don't know how many people visited this place in the 70s and for whom this is their first time back here. So I raise my hand. I'm guilty. So again, that is another reason that I am glad to be here, to see this place back to life. And I'm sure you are going to applaud this even more. There was something that concerned this place. I don't quite remember what it was now. And I called the senator and I said, look, there's still some outstanding work to be done about the environment and all of that. And he said, oh, yes, that the person who chairs the bankers committee in charge of this place happens to be a woman. I don't quite remember her name. But the significance of that is this. Perhaps enough credit has not been given to the role that person played in making this possible. And this perhaps lies at the heart of why the gender that is responsible for bringing the other half to life is still looking for presence and power when you hold everything in your hands. So I would have loved to be in the room when the choice of keynote speaker was being deliberated and to know how and why the Lord fell on me. But I saw that I was surrounded by Ogun people. And, well, I will keep my gunpowder dry now about that. But the opportunity to know how that happened is irretrievably lost. But what I am left with, a theme from presence to power, advancing women's influence in the boardroom. My first observation is that at least women have acknowledged, especially in their letter to me, that diversity in the boardrooms have improved. So, but the issue now is how influential has that representation become? And I think the speakers before me have highlighted this. But I think this acknowledgement itself is important. It indicates that there has been progress in the agitation for a fairer treatment of women. And we've had this debate back in my time in government with the women, and I'm saying, look, is this equality that we should be agitating for, or is it equity? And I think Mr. Oshika has made that point too. And it would have been quite simple for me to just adopt all of the addresses and go and sit down, because I'm not going to tell you anything new. So, for me, what requires interrogation is why the representation that has been acknowledged has perhaps not translated to decisive influence. And I think in interrogating that, we will look at many things. So I have raised the question of the conflict or the competition between testosterone and estrogen. It's only this part of the room that is excited about that conversation. But it's a scientific thing, as we all know, hormones and all of that. But just to say that both of us have both hormones. On this side, the male gender, testosterone is the more dominant one. Estrogen, less so. On the female side, estrogen is the more dominant one. Testosterone, less so. And they have shown us that our aggressive behavior on this side our risk-taking, our daring disposition is fueled by those hormones. While the empathic, cautious, measured, and perhaps more deliberate activities are dictated by. So it seems to me that it is possible that we are measuring things unequally. Because, so this place has come together. It's probably men who are in the front and center claiming the credit, but the power was done from behind by a woman. But think about it. But I say that in interrogating whether presence has translated to power and to decisive influence, no data of any measure has been offered in the letter to me to say, why have there been 5 women in this place and all of that. That data would perhaps have been helpful. So I will speak largely hypothetical. And the first thing I say is that women have ruled our world in a way that is uniquely theirs, perhaps without acknowledging it. It seems to me that the assumption or the assertion, depending on what you choose, that power hasn't translated to influence is something that is not empirically demonstrable. Because my own experience does not support it. My experience in the public service shows at state level that there were more women than men in the Lagos judiciary and in the senior management at the level of permanent secretary, which was the highest career elevation in the public service. The president here has already told us that in his council of 8, he now has 6 women. And it is still not enough. Perhaps we, the men, have not started making the case that we are now endangered species. You're laughing. I tell my wife, every time we go to a shopping mall, maybe 7 floors, the first 6 or so floors is women's things and their children. Then when I'm looking for a shirt or a corner, they just take me to one corner. So it was perhaps not surprising with the large representation we had in Lagos State that there is a place actually in Lagos called Ilubirin, the land of women. I don't know if they have it in Ogun. But on a serious note, if the question was a debate about quality versus number of persons, there is nothing to suggest, in my view, that, for example, the women judges that we had were less in control of their courtrooms than the men, or that the women permanent secretaries were not effectively in charge of their ministries. Not only did we have a female head of service at some point, we had a trilogy of female chief judges in immediate succession. So by the time I left office, 40 of the 57 judges of the High Court of Lagos were women. At the magistrates' court level, the figure was 73 out of 101. Ilubirini. 7 of the 10 most senior administrative offices in the judiciary were in women's hands. These appointments were not arranged for effect. Each of the 3 chief judges that succeeded themselves reached that office on seniority, on a ladder that women had climbed in their numbers. One of these successions especially stayed with me. When the second of those three women handed the office over to the third, she was handing it to her own sister. Two of them, daughters of the late Justice James Oladipo Williams, each in her turn at the head of the Lagos bench. As far as influence and effectiveness go, one incident stands out, and I will share the experience. In one of our ministries, we had a male commissioner and a female permanent secretary, both of whom were qualified in the same profession and who had an enviable working relationship. On one occasion, in a moment of constructive dissent, the female permanent secretary came to see me and she expressed her inability to support her commissioner's position with respect to an assignment that they were undertaking. Those who are familiar with the civil service structure, memos are generated from bottom to top, and then the PAMSEC, I see Mrs. Aoshika nodding her head, and then is minuted by the PAMSEC to the minister or commissioner, as the case may be, and then to the CEO. And I said to her, please, go and put your own opinion in writing. If your commissioner has a different opinion, because for me, it was a privilege to have different views from two professionals that I held in high esteem. Eventually, I opted to follow the advice offered by the female permanent secretary over the male commissioner's recommendation. And it wasn't a platitude, it was eminent common sense. And they were professionals in the same field, but they disagreed. And I feel more proud to say that to date, they still have a good personal relationship many years after we have left work. Please note that at the highest level of executive authority for the whole of my administration, I also had the privilege of serving with women. Princess Sarah Adebisi Shoson was my deputy governor in the first term, and Princess Adejoke Orelope Adefulire in the second term. They led the ministries of education and women affairs and poverty alleviation, respectively. I could not have had more effective persons in charge of those ministries at the time. But the story doesn't end there. The head of the civil service at some point was Mrs. Josephine Oluseyi Williams. She retired. Again, she handed over to another woman, Mrs. Folashade Sherifat Jaji, on the basis of seniority and not political appointment for presence. And as if that was not enough, the secretaries to government who worked with me were Princess Derele Ogunsanya, now of blessed memory, and later Mrs. Idiat Oluranti Adebule, now the senator representing Lagos West. Again, these were not coincidences. They were not platitudes, they were not just numbers. One of the most daunting tasks at the time, AI now makes that task look easy. But at that time, digitizing our weekly council minute records, which are in large volumes of paper, was an assignment that we gave them. And they did it with outstanding success that we could boast at that time of easy retrieval and documentation of all our minutes. It would look easy today, but 1.5 decades ago, about half of this room all filled with paper and putting it in digital form. These women did it. The Lekki Free Zone Trade today that houses the Lekki Seaport and the Dangote Refinery on 16,000 hectares of land. 16,000 hectares of land is many times, about 30 times the size of Victoria Island. Victoria Island is 500 hectares. It was driven by a woman, Mrs. Olushola Uhuru. She was Honorable Commissioner for Commerce and Industry. She did not come to that work as a politician. She came from the world many of you know, a career in banking and finance that took her to the rank of vice president at Citibank before she entered government. One of the largest industrial undertakings in the history of our state was placed in her hands, and she delivered it. Now, today, let me share a story. When the Dangote Group finally decided that it was Lagos and we had located the land, the question was, how much? Lagos land, depending on which scheme, had fixed rates. So when we applied the rates, the Dangote people said, no, this money is too much. And I said, okay, we're walking away from this deal. But it was Mrs. Owuru's advice in council that tipped the moment. And what did she say? She said, look, Governor, you have 16,000 hectares of land. The Chinese are in 3,000 hectares. We have barely built 200. 13,000 is waiting for investors. You now find an investor who wants to take 2,000 hectares and build a refinery of $19 million, and you are quibbling over the cost of the land. Offer the land at a discount. Once he comes in, others will follow, and then you can make money from your land. That was a tipping decision. That was her advice. It wasn't mine. And the whole of council then looked to me, and I surrendered. So I say that these were not tokens of representations. They were expressions of competence. In the course of preparing this intervention, I sought some data from the federal government about the number of women currently heading federal parastatals. The incomplete return that came to me was 37. But even that is enough for me to strongly disagree with the assumption that those appointments, as they relate to women, may just be for presence rather than power. I think to suggest that 37 people holding authority were just there for presence is to do a disservice to them, is to disrespect them. And I think we must refuse to accept that thinking. Indeed, it then invites us to question the idea that where such presence without power exists, whether it is simply a gender thing or a human thing. Should I repeat that? So where presence without power exists, is it a gender thing or a human thing? Aha. The correct assumption, as Mrs. Shokefun has said here, must be that once you get appointed, you are expected to get things done rather than watch things happen. As the Yorubas will say, tí a bá fi ènìyàn joyè àwòdì, ó yẹ kó lè gbé adìẹ. So for those who don't speak Yoruba, àwòdì is the hawk that hunts chicken. And that the minimum responsibility that bird of prey has is to still at least be able to hunt a chick successfully. So if you are given authority and you choose not to use it, you can't come back and say it's because I'm a woman. That's a disservice to women. So therefore, I say that ineffectiveness is not a gender thing. It is a human thing. So this brings me to another incident, my interaction with 3 former colleagues. No, 2 of them were former colleagues, 1 not so. So when we got appointed into President Buhari's government, they felt either disappointed that they did not get ministries that they thought their core training would have prescribed them for, or that they thought that the demands of the ministry was not something. Anyway, they came to say to me independently that they were going to reject the appointments after we had been screened in the Senate and the ministries announced. And I said, no, you can't do that now. Go and take on the job and bring your unique abilities to bear. I say very proudly today that they left significantly indelible footprints after accepting my advice to the job. The third person who came in such circumstances perhaps did not leave so indelible footprints. But I tell this story to reinforce the gender neutrality of effectiveness or lack thereof. They were all men. So men can be ineffective, even with power. And there's a long list. Now, I will attempt to examine a few things that may be feeding the assumption that women in public spaces, public offices, are meant to represent only presence and not power. Let me issue a caveat here that I do not intend to gaslight the female gender or indeed any person, but rather I simply intend to highlight examples that may set the tone for further discussions after the keynote. The first consideration is the individual capacity for the job. Whether one is female or male, is the person worthy of the appointment they have got, or have they been over-promoted? If they have been over-promoted, it's not the end of the world. Are they ready to learn and to lead? Or do they simply want people to just know how connected they are from the top, and they have come with power, and everybody who is under them must listen to them? Or do they come with this arrogance of knowledge, as some of us who went from private sector into the public service did, thinking that everybody in the civil service was behind us and that we were smarter than them? For me, it was a most humbling learning curve when I entered the public service. Some of the smartest people in the world are there. So those are the things that begin to shape whether you can become effective or not. Is your ego bigger than you? So reading the room helps. Because if you don't read the room, your pride will come before your big fall. The people we meet in those public spaces may need to be led, but they are no fools themselves. And I tell people to this day, public service has its own language, and it is different from that of the private sector. So there's a joke in my house about an abbreviation. We call it deep HE. So my second son was much younger when I took office. And he couldn't help but notice when we were addressing each other, HE, DG, this. So one day I went to ask his mom, say, Mommy, don't they have names? It's HHP, DPP, HHH. But that is our language. So if you come into that world, as I did, my first 1 week there, I almost surrendered. That's a story I hope to tell. You know, you would read a file, and yes, you were reasonably cognitive, you knew what to do, but how to get it out? So my palm sec then, Mr. Joseph, God bless him, who sit across me, and he'll say, write HCEMV. I say, what's that? That's environment. That's the language. So, and we will go from what? PS, EST, establishment. and many more. Then when I get home at night, like midnight, tired, I will start writing them down, memorizing them. At least as a lawyer, I have some intelligence, but it took me 3 months to even settle down. And even my settling down was the first one because he had to go on vacation. And now he said, look, you are in the deep end. You must either swim or sink. That is the reality of the public space. You can't ignore it. So the successful leader must learn the language of the community in order to be able to communicate. Because communication itself is effective leadership. Of course, closely related to this is how we dress up. Because we will be addressed in the way that we dress. And this is not a gender thing. It is a human thing. If your presence attracts attention to what you look like, what you expose, what you adorn yourself with, and so on, you have already taken attention away from the reason you were appointed, which is the job. And what you have done is to direct attention to yourself, which is personal. Your views on the purpose are less likely to be then taken seriously because you have dressed in a way that indicates that the job is not important. So again, whilst I was preparing this, I recalled a statement about how Barack Obama dressed. In 8 years, he wore only blue and gray suits. In 8 years. And so somebody asked him why that happened. Let me just read something out of it. You can track it online, but it's critical to decision making. And this is the excerpt I found. Barack Obama wore only gray or blue suits every single day of his presidency. When he was asked why, his answer was immediate. I am trying to pare down decisions. I don't want to make decisions about what I'm eating or wearing because I have too many other decisions to make. Every decision the brain makes, this is important, draws from the same finite pool of cognitive resources. Trivial or consequential, the brain doesn't distinguish, it's a decision. So it's like discharging a battery for unimportant things. And then when you need energy, you have wasted it on how your hair looks and all of those. So he recommends here that trivial decision must be automated. Repeat, redo, repeat, redo. Same breakfast, same morning sequence, same workout time. Every eliminated decision preserves the cognitive resource that your brain needs for the one that actually matters. I will stop there so that we don't lose the track of our trend of thoughts. But I think that, I'm losing my paper now. So that's a serious decision. Thank you. So leadership comes with burdens, not the least of which is suspicion, or at best, suspicion at best, distrust at the worst. So you come into a group of people, where have they brought this one again? That's what you meet. It's natural. For those of you who raise pets, introduce one new chicken into your brood and you see why everybody will surround her. Or bring one new dog or new cat. It's human, it's animal. So you are first, on arrival, you are creating suspicion. If you are lucky. If not, from day one, they don't even trust you. What is required of the leader, therefore, is to earn the trust of those that they lead. That is the basis for acceptance. And I tell the story of elephants. There's documentation that suggests that elephants need to drink water at least every 3 days. Otherwise, they risk death by dehydration. When they are moving in the dry season, they trust only one elephant, the oldest elephant, and it is not the bull. It is the oldest female, described as the matriarch. Why do they trust her? From when she was a child, she has walked that journey every year with older elephants, her grandmother, her great-grandmother. So when it comes to where there is no water, and you will see this in nature documentaries, the decision whether to turn left or right, she's the one who remembers maybe there was a place where they will get to, and you see them just kicking the sand, and water will come out, just to give them relief until they get to the next. And that is the kind of knowledge that brings respect for a leader. Do those who you lead trust your knowledge? Do they trust your judgment? And it has nothing, if anything, to do with gender. It has everything to do with capacity, with preparation, and so many things. So I say that just like the elephants, in the human world, we will need to build trust through knowledge acquisition, which should then be sensibly deployed into decision making. Both leaders of both genders must earn the trust of the people that they lead in order to be effective. And this does not mean that the leader must know everything. Nobody knows everything. Life is continuous learning. But in today's world, as a leader, data is useful. So if I'm talking to my team and I'm saying, look, data has shown that there are more women in this room than there are men. And if they do a head count and they see that that data is unimpeachable, they're likely to trust my judgment. And so I offer, in addition, that it is not just going for the meetings, being on the board. We must prepare. Read the minutes, read the reports, ask questions, understand, use your search engines to clarify terminologies that are new to you so that they are not speaking over your head in the meeting and then you come out and say, well, they didn't let you talk because you are a woman. Or that the president in council now will now say because there are 6 women in the council, they won't let him talk because they are now more, because he's a man. If you have value to add, they will listen. I then offer that leaders must also espouse good values, especially those values that have underpinned our civilization for centuries. One of those values is respect for the family unit. That's part of what earns you trust. So I share the story of a federal public officer who was brought to our state to disrupt and distract us because we were then in opposition. On the day he resumed and came into my office, the first thing I asked him was, how is your wife? And how are your children? Where are they? How old are they? What school do they go to? And so on and so forth. Before I then told him that, okay, we have made arrangements for your accommodation. We have made arrangements for this. But he was a famously infamous public officer for disrupting governors. So by the time our interaction ended, weeks after he settled in, there was no disruption, there was no headline news. I didn't fight him, he didn't fight me. A mutual friend then went to him that, look, what's going on? This fellow seems to have become your friend. He said, why won't he become my friend? The people who sent me here never asked me about my wife and my children before. That was the first thing he asked me when I got to his office. And so, using that as a metaphor for talking about values, the leader must pay attention to the well-being of the team he is leading. That is part of trust building. That is part of effectiveness, and so on and so forth. People trust those who care about them and their loved ones. And effective leadership will depend in part on concern for the welfare and well-being of members of the leaders' team. And I just want to say, in addition, that another point to bear in mind is to understand the nature and the purpose of the organization in which we are assigned to take participatory or leadership role. And in this context, I want to speak about Nigeria's privatization undertaking, which started since 1986. Irrespective of what anybody can tell you, the privatization decree was enacted in 1986, the Babangida era. And that was what started the process of transferring government-owned assets to privately run and owned assets. And that includes the media, the banks, the airlines, electricity, and other things. But what has happened, therefore, is that what used to be government-owned are now license-based businesses. You can't operate a bank without a license. You can't operate an airline without a license. You can't operate a telecoms company or an electricity generation, transmission, or distribution without a license. So we have gone to a licensing era. And in that licensing era, what has happened? Government has created new organizations to regulate. Now, how many of those people who get appointed to become regulators, whether male or female, recognize that they are now regulators and they are no longer operators? Because we are talking about effectiveness. How many of them have developed the regulatory skills? Because regulation is a skill. And how many have acquired the regulatory ethic that places them in the right supervisory pedestal to do only what regulators should do and avoid doing what regulators should not do? So when the regulator begins to wine and dine with the people they should be regulating, can there be effectiveness? So whether you are a man or woman, it doesn't matter. It's not a gender thing. It's a purpose thing. In instances where the government has privatized but has not properly surrendered the operational role, and that is happening in a few instances, how many of those leaders, like myself, who now find ourselves, oh, I have so much power, operational and regulatory, quickly recognize that there is an inherent conflict of interest here, and has the presence of mind to say, look, this is not going to work, because it won't be effective. You'll just be moving things from one pocket to the other. And again, that is a major headwind against effectiveness. And the proper thing in those circumstances is to say, look, listen, this can't work. I want to surrender these powers so that I can keep this one. You're either the operator or the regulator. You can't be both. So, for me, I know quite a number of the ladies in this room, and I have worked with quite a few of you in my private and public life. I think that I can say confidently that you do not represent the posture of presence without power that underlies this thing. On the contrary, you represent the other half of humanity, and you represent the improving gender diversity in boardrooms in public and private spaces. Some of the successes credited to me as a person or to the government I served in are actually the product of your hard work, your resourcefulness, and your leadership. So in another life, if there is another life, and if I had to choose who to serve with, I will choose you. Thank you.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that deserves another round of applause. Let us acknowledge H.E. Babatunde Raji Fashola, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. How many agree with me that that was more than a keynote? That was certainly a masterclass. Can we appreciate him one more time? Sir, I'm sure you know that from the way everybody is standing, you gave us more than a charge. Mrs. Ifeyinwa Osime, you were not in the room when His Excellency spoke. You were? Okay, she was. We're hoping that the way you yielded your seat to him many years ago to shape his career as a litigator, we're hoping that men will yield their seats to women to shape our careers as directors. Can we say yes to that? So as His Excellency spoke, we're doing a quick photo shoot, a photo session with our keynote speaker. He said, we're still looking for presence and power when we, as women, hold everything in our hands. Women have ruled the world in a way uniquely theirs without acknowledging it. Wherever we're present, it is not just for our presence, but because the power we carry brought us here. Ineffectiveness is not a gender thing, but a human thing. Reading the room helps. Communication itself is effective leadership. And he made one very important. He said the way we appear dressed up is how we will be addressed. Don't be dressed in a way to indicate the job is not important. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, one more time, please, can we applaud His Excellency, Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN-CON. I'm meant to be doing more recognitions. Can I have the paper? We want to acknowledge the presence of the chairman of Odua Investment Group, the very tireless Otumba Bimbola Ashiru.
There's something special about Benin. Out of Benin, my next, can we please appreciate Professor Enase Okonedo, FCIOD, the Vice Chancellor of Pan Atlantic University. Very proudly, my senior in FGGC Benin. Yes, please. Fediben babes are heavy chicks. And seated beside her is another Fediben heavy chick. Yes. Sorry about that. I've just got, But we're not to acknowledge the presence of Mrs. Folushola Niyo, OON, member, CIOD Governing Council. They've just been elected in, so we're so happy. I think, Mrs. Folushola Niyo, can you please stand up so that, we want her to stand up so that people can, you were just elected. Let them know our new council members. Thank you very much. Mrs. Bimbola Wright, member CIOD Governing Council. Mrs. Wright? Okay, thank you, ma'am. I need to recognize also Dr. Chinyere Almona, the Director General, SCCI. Can we please acknowledge her? Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Dele Alemi, FCIOD, former Director General, the Chartered Institute of Directors. Thank you, sir, for being here with us. And can we please recognize Ms. Oluwatoyin Naiwo, Registrar CEO, CIPM. Always here with us. Thank you very much. As I get more recognitions, we will do them. Earlier, when I was going around speaking to the women about their expectations for today, we did have a director of Premium Trust Bank. Ma'am, yes, ma'am. Please, can we acknowledge her? So we're going to do some presentations quickly, very quickly. So to make a presentation to our keynote speaker, I'm going to be calling the president of the CIOD, Otumba, to come up, together with the chairman of the Women's Sector Group, Mrs. Shokefo. Can you please come up to make this presentation to our keynote speaker, His Excellency Babatunde Raji Fashola. Ms. Shokefo? Thank you.
He's already here, but I wanted to. I'm sure you will all agree with me that that was a very insightful keynote address. Please, another round of applause. And I hope we all got the message that it's not so much that the power is not already there, but it is about taking hold of that power and making our presence felt, whether we are men or whether we are women. So I hope that message came across very clearly. The plaque, please. Now, performing this duty, one of the assurances I get is that at least my wife will not be retrieved. I can go home to say, well, I have done the needful. So it is my distinct pleasure on behalf of the Council, the Women's Group of the Chartered Institute of Directors, Nigeria, to present this plaque to you, sir, in appreciation of your invaluable contribution as the guest speaker at the 2026 Women Directors Biennial Conference held on Wednesday, 1st of July, 2026.
Thank you, sirs. Thank you, ma'am. To make the presentation to our special guest of honor, Dr. Dere Awoshika, I'm going to be calling the first Vice President, Mrs. Amina Oyabola, and also former President, Chief Chris Okunawa. Please, can you come up to make the presentation to our special guest of honor? Oh, she has left.
I don't know if somebody can take it or not.
Can we have somebody? Okay. The woman chairman of Access Bank who took over from the former woman chairman of Access Bank. Can you please come and represent her? So that please appreciate her as she comes forward.
It's indeed a pleasure to be here this morning and to make this presentation on behalf of the President and Chairman of the Governing Council of the Chartered Institute of Directors Nigeria to the representative of Dr. Mrs. Ajori Shedire Awoshika, CON, MFR, MNI, in appreciation of our invaluable contribution as a special guest of honor at the 2026 Women Directors Biennial Conference held today, 1st July 2026. Madam.
Thank you very much, Sir and Maz. Can we please appreciate them again as they go back to their seats? So to make the presentation to the First Lady, I'm going to be calling a past president of the CIOD Nigeria, the very beautiful Miss Benedicta Moloko. Please come up, and Dr. EJ Jidema, very beautiful. So it's a women's thing now. Yeah, always women. So can we have Her Excellency the First Lady of Ogun State come up?
On behalf of the Chairman of the Council of the Chartered Institute of Directors and President, as well as the Council members, it's my distinct pleasure to thank the First Lady of Ogun State, Chief Mrs. I don't know whether you're Chief. Abiodun, we thank you very much for the beautiful and insightful statements that you made